tonight, as the world turns under the same uncertain sky, power is being negotiated not only in meeting rooms or war zones, but in words, cameras, and screens. Every statement, every soundbite, every public briefing now carries the weight of global consequence. Behind the calm tones of diplomacy lies a fierce struggle, not for territory, but for truth, perception, and control. Good evening. I'm here to take you behind that curtain into the world where language becomes a weapon and where those who master communication shape the course of nations. This is not about armies or borders. It's about influence, about the invisible battle fought every day in press rooms, television, studios, and social media feeds. And to understand that world, we need to look at a figure who embodies it perfectly. Someone whose journey from government podium to primetime television reveals how politics and media have become two sides of the same coin. That figure is Jen Psaki, a name that in recent years has come to symbolize the power and the pressure of public communication in modern geopolitics. When you imagine a battlefield, you probably picture soldiers and tanks. There's another kind of battlefield, one made of microphones and questions, lights and headlines. Mm-hmm. In that arena, every gesture, every pause, every carefully chosen word can shift alliances and send ripples through markets and ministries alike. That's where Jen Psaki spent years, in the White House briefing room where information and strategy collide. Now, let's rewind. The United States was at a turning point. A pandemic had shaken its foundations. The world was watching a wounded democracy heal after unprecedented political turbulence. Trust in government and media was collapsing. And into that storm walked Psaki, appointed as the face and voice of a new administration promising stability and transparency. Her task wasn't just to deliver information, it was to restore credibility. From the first moment she stepped behind that podium, her tone was calm, steady, deliberate. She didn't shout. She didn't improvise. She knew the weight of every word. And that's exactly what made her effective. In geopolitics, composure is strategy. The way a government speaks, especially in crisis, becomes a reflection of its confidence, its coherence, and its command of events. But let's be clear, Psaki wasn't just talking to American reporters. Every time she addressed that room, she was also speaking to Beijing, to Moscow, to Brussels, to Tehran. Each statement about security, sanctions, or diplomacy carried coded messages understood by governments worldwide. The White House podium was never just domestic, it was global theater. When the U.S. withdrew from Afghanistan, that theater became chaos. The images from Kabul airport dominated every screen on Earth. And in Washington, Jen Psaki became the human face of the administration's explanations. The situation was devastating, and no line could fully control the narrative. Yet, even in the storm, she stood firm, navigating impossible questions, choosing words with surgical precision, and trying to preserve America's credibility abroad. That moment revealed something essential about how power works today. It's not only about what nations do, it's about how they explain what they do. Every military operation, every diplomatic deal, every political reversal must now be narrated in real time to a restless, skeptical, globally connected audience. And that's where people like Psaki redefine the role of communication. They are translators between the language of policy and the language of public perception. In that space, truth isn't simply stated, it's managed. After leaving the White House, Psaki transitioned into television, hosting her own political program. On the surface, it looked like a career move, but symbolically, it meant something bigger. It was proof that the line between government and media had all but disappeared. The spokesperson became the commentator. The narrator of power became a voice shaping how power itself is understood. This revolving door between politics and media is now one of the most defining features of our time. Former officials move into newsrooms. Journalists move into political offices. Each side borrows from the other. The result A world where narrative control is continuous from the corridors of government to the studios of broadcast networks. That merger of politics and media raises questions about objectivity, trust, and the ownership of truth. When a former government spokesperson analyzes policies on television, are we hearing journalism or an extension of political messaging in another form? The answer, as always in geopolitics, depends on perspective. Here's what's undeniable: the voice that controls the frame controls the story. And in international affairs, controlling the story often means controlling the outcome. Think about it. When the U.S. announces sanctions on a rival nation, the technical details are complex, but most people won't read the policy paper. They'll hear the soundbite, the version packaged by communicators like Psaki, debated by pundits, echoed by allies, and contested by adversaries. By the time the public forms an opinion, the narrative has already been shaped. This is the power of modern media diplomacy. It's a battlefield where the first casualty isn't truth, it's neutrality, because even facts, once filtered through tone, context, and repetition, start carrying the weight of interpretation. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly how global perception is built. In the 20th century, nations competed for territory. In the 21st century, they compete for narrative dominance. Words have replaced weapons as the frontline tools of persuasion. Every briefing, every headline, every viral clip contributes to the architecture of power. And so communication has become strategy. The person at the podium isn't merely an intermediary. They are an operator, a participant in the global chessboard of messaging. Jen Psaki's calm deflections, her disciplined language, her command of framing, all of it was part of that choreography. She wasn't just answering questions. She was performing statecraft. But this is where things get even more interesting. The rise of social media has turned every briefing into a global event. Moments that once vanished after a day's news cycle now live forever online, clipped, remixed, and reinterpreted. A witty remark can become a meme. A hesitation can spark a conspiracy theory. Information has no borders, and neither do misinterpretations. That's why communication strategy today must account for virality as much as validity. Governments now design statements with global audiences in mind, not just journalists in the room. They know that within minutes, translations will appear, foreign ministries will issue responses, and social media users will form narratives of their own. In that sense, Psaki's professionalism wasn't just about style. It was about survival in an age of hyper scrutiny. A misplaced phrase can move markets. A tone of uncertainty can invite geopolitical testing. Composure is no longer just etiquette. It's national security. Now, let's widen the lens again. Psaki's story is part of a much larger phenomenon. Around the world, we're witnessing the rise of what could be called the communicator class, individuals who operate at the intersection of politics, journalism, and influence. They are the new interpreters of global power, capable of shaping how billions understand international events. And with that influence comes responsibility and risk. The public's trust in traditional institutions is fragile. Many people no longer believe what governments say. They don't fully trust what media reports. And that trust deficit creates a vacuum, one that's quickly filled by personalities, pundits, and algorithms. So when a communicator like Psaki speaks, she's not just addressing a press corps. She's speaking into a fragmented, polarized, emotionally charged world where every statement is both an explanation and a provocation. That's the environment in which modern geopolitics unfolds, a constant feedback loop between message and reaction, statement and spin, diplomacy and digital outrage. The global stage has no backstage anymore. Everything is visible. Everything is performative. In that context, the ability to communicate effectively is not just an advantage. It's essential to power itself. Nations that fail to tell their story lose control of their narrative. And in today's interconnected world, losing your narrative means losing influence. Now, let's look ahead. As more officials move into media and more journalists must move into politics, this cycle will intensify. Governments will continue to professionalize their communication apparatus. Media outlets will continue to serve as both watchdogs and amplifiers. And audiences, that's you, will need to become more critical, more discerning, and more aware of how stories are constructed. Because here's the truth: geopolitics today is not just a contest of armies or economies. It's a contest of realities. Competing versions of truth are crafted, broadcast, and fought over in real time. And the people who can command attention calmly, convincingly, strategically are the ones shaping how the world itself is understood. Jen Psaki's journey from press secretary to political host may seem like a personal career arc. It reflects something much bigger, the evolution of communication as the new currency of power. She is part of a generation of figures who have learned to blend politics and media so seamlessly that it's impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. That's why understanding communication is the key to understanding geopolitics. The wars of the future may be fought with code and cyber, but the battle for legitimacy for hearts and minds will still come down to the same thing it always has: who tells the story best. So the next time you watch a press briefing, a political debate, or a news analysis, listen closely. Don't just hear the words, hear the strategy behind them, the pauses, the phrases designed to resonate, the choice of what's not said. Every detail matters, because in this era of information warfare, the podium is as powerful as the battlefield. And that's the world we now live in, where power speaks softly, but every word echoes loudly across the globe. Stay tuned, stay aware, and never stop questioning the stories that shape our world.